everyone. Today we have a special topic, and you've probably been noticing I've been really focusing this month on couples content and really what it is to navigate relationships, right? Whether you're dating or you're in a serious relationship. This is going to be a juicy conversation for anyone really navigating that journey and exploring, how do I get deeper with my partner? And even this concept of before you go any further, which I'm excited that LaShawn's going to be joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and invite her in. And let's see, 1 second. Her perspectives. We're going to get into a little bit more about how to have these candid conversations before we take it to the next level and to the next step. Yay! Hello, LaShawn. So I was just starting to kind of talk about the topic today, but I would love for you to just kind of intro yourself, and then we can go from there.
Okay, awesome. Well, my name is LaShawn McQuarrie. I am an author. I am a life coach, and I am very excited about my most recent project, which is Before We Go Any Further. It is a pre-engagement workbook. Hear me? Pre-engagement workbook for couples. That's very important.
Yes. No, and I love that. And this is partly the reason why we had this idea to really get on here and start sharing more about these topics, because I think they're very important and oftentimes overlooked because we don't want things to change from that honeymoon phase, right? We want to just stay in that surface level, style of relationship where everything is fine, everything is great. Let's not get into the uncomfortable conversations because the relationship may change. Maybe just tell us a little bit more about, what got you into creating this workbook?
Well, it was really interesting that after being married for a few years, you change from being the single person that I know exactly what I would do if I was married. It's going to look like this and it's going to look like that. And then you get married and you go, okay, what happened? Where are the roses? Where are the butterflies and all the rainbows? And you begin to really look at marriage from a different lens because now you're in it. And one of the things that I realized is that it wasn't just my marriage, that there were lots of couples that were experiencing things that they weren't expecting. So I realized that there were all these expectations of how their partner was going to show up. And when that does not happen, of course, there's arguments and there's strife and there's a lot of marital dissatisfaction. So I wrote this workbook to help couples better navigate marriage if they choose to go that far. And that's why it's called Before We Go Any Further. Because as they're going through this workbook, there are going to be some things that come up, right? It's just natural, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing, but I want them to have deeper conversations, because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I want to have kids, you want to have kids. Well, how many kids do you want to have? And then once you have those kids, what does it look like, your day-to-day life as you're rearing those children? So just digging a little deeper. Of course, you can't answer every question, but it's important for you to cover some of the basics.
Yes, I love how you say all this, because what I've noticed in my work with couples, there's a lot of that dissatisfaction you mentioned, but also on an emotional level. Sometimes there's resentment, right? There's these deeper emotions that start to build because, those things weren't talked about, and you're 5 years into the relationship realizing, do we even know each other? Do we even know what we want, in our lives and what we want to create? So sometimes I even joke, like, part of this journey is the self-discovery journey, so that you know exactly what you want.
Yes.
Not once you're already in a dynamic and things start to change, and then, finally you realize, oh my gosh, you're on different spectrums.
Absolutely. I love that term of self-discovery, because that's the first portion of it, knowing what you want first and foremost, and then coming together with your mate and saying, do you want the same thing? Like, are we on the same thing? And it doesn't mean that you're going to like every single thing, but there are some things in life that are much more important than other things. And that couple gets to decide what's important for them. And that's one of the things that is covered in the book, is having them go through and ask questions, why do you want to get married? What does marriage look like to you? And it doesn't matter what your family and your friends think. What does it look like to you? What do you want to accomplish in your marriage? And just so long as the two people in that relationship are on the same page, then you're good. But when you're not on the same page, that's when all the problems arise.
Yes, yes, I love how you say that, because within the tantric perspective, I'm a big believer in find your truth of relationship, right? As you mentioned, not what society told you, not what your parents told you, not what others told you that should make you happy. There's a lot of exploring of, yeah, what type of relationship dynamic do you want? And even those questions, I'm so curious, because I could even see it as like, you may ask, you may have a stronger stance on a certain question than your partner. Your partner may be more open and flexible. So I'm sure there's levels to it, but at least knowing like, hey, is this something that you're flexible with versus no, this is set in stone. I don't see myself, teetering in the future ever.
And that's exactly it, because you're not going to be 100% on the same page on every single topic, but you do on the topics that the two people find are most important to them. Are the two of you on the same page?
Yeah.
So it's just the dialogue,
Yeah.
talking about finances, talking about friends, talking about social media, talking about, just everything involved in a marriage, and even asking the questions at the end of each chapter. What else? Did any other questions come to your mind? Because it was impossible for me to put every single question that could possibly come to mind in the book. So I decided to just, prompt more questions. Okay, what else? Did anything else come to your mind? And if it did, what's your response to that question? And then make sure you ask your partner and ask them for their response as well.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, and this aspect of asking question, it allows you to go more into that creative space, I feel. And it's something that I always encourage everyone to do, so to, yeah, start asking those questions that maybe you didn't think of. And I'm sure even like what's coming to mind, maybe you have an opinion on this, but is it too soon to ask certain questions, or when is the right time to start asking these questions?
That is a great question. And I would say, if the two of you, well, first of all, I think that you should always be asking questions, right? So even as you're meeting a person, and you don't want to give them 1,000 questions the first day that you meet, because you can observe a lot, right? Just by listening, paying attention to the person's verbal language as well as their body language. So as you're paying attention to all of that, you begin to ask questions. So you should be doing that all along the way. But when it comes to reading and really going through before we go any further, if the two of you have been talking about marriage, maybe talking about rings, what does life look like together, then it would be a good time for you to say, hey, let's go a little bit deeper and let's dive into this. Because one of the things that happens is many times couples will not do premarital counseling until they're engaged. Mm-hmm. Well, by that time, I've got a ring, we're getting married. Yeah. You know what I mean? I've told my friends and family, we're getting married. We've spent money, we're getting married, right? Instead of taking the time to say, before we go to that step, let's go ahead and dive into some of the deep questions. Mm-hmm. And if we like where we're going, good. And if we don't, we can still go to counseling. That's a great time for you to invest it, because guess what? If there's an issue, it's going to come up. It's either going to come now or it's going to come up later. So it's a lot easier, I believe, that if you do it prior to getting married. And again, it doesn't mean that it's going to destroy the relationship, but it is going to give you a much more solid foundation. If both parties are on the same page, you're coming together and you're deciding, okay, we're going to make these decisions that are in the greatest and highest good of ourselves and then collectively as a couple. And when you make it the decision from that standpoint, then your chances of having a successful marriage are much better.
Yes, yes. No, I totally agree. And yeah, and it doesn't, for me as well, is like I'm a firm believer in ask for clarity, especially if you feel like there's confusion in the relationship, if, you know, maybe one party's not really expressing themselves enough, or maybe you probably answer the question and then there's silence. There's also an opportunity to go into deeper discussion. Okay, well, how does that make you feel with my response? And have like really a beautiful, open, and safe container for this, which does take practice. And that's something that I teach a lot of. How do you really allow these safe spaces for the open communication to know that, hey, like, we want what's best for both of us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And ultimately being okay with knowing what's right for you, and that sometimes what's right for you and what's right for your partner is for you to not be together. And that's the hardest, scariest part of it all, is like, what do you mean? I'm in love with this person. You know, we've been together for a few years. We know each other's families. We travel together. And you have all these reasons to, in your mind, stay together. But what's at the core of it? What's at the root of it? Can it really sustain itself with each one of you truly stepping into your power of who you are as a person?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I advise them to do at the beginning of the book, there are instructions. So everybody jump into the track chapters, make sure that you read the instructions first, and they're not that long. But making sure that when you go through the questions, that you take time to pray, to meditate, to get into whatever your special space is, and then answer the questions by yourself. Then, as your partner is doing the exact same thing wherever they are, you schedule time to come together and discuss your answers. It is very important that it is done this way, because each person needs time to reflect and say, okay, how do I really feel about this? Instead of kind of answering a question and you're seeing their body language and you're seeing how they're responding and they're stiffening up and they don't look happy or pleased with your response, so now it's being changed. No, reflect your truth, and then by doing that, you open up, you know, the opportunity for the honest dialogue to happen. And again, it does not mean that it's necessarily going to be a deal breaker, but you do need to stand in your power and say, hey, this is who I am, and this is what I want, and this is what's important to me. You know, and you can ask each other, well, why is that important to you? Where did that come from? You can begin to probe a little bit deeper, but you don't have that opportunity if you're not speaking your truth to begin with.
Yes, 100%. And yeah, that's something that I teach as well, so much on like energetics and really being able to, as a sensitive person, I really help people really stay in their truth and not get as affected by other energies, because there's so much of that programming of, you know, from your inner child, you know, what you feel on a nervous system level, that you can easily be affected by others, you know, responses or their truth, thinking that it's yours, but maybe you're just going along with things because you don't want to cause conflict, you don't want to sit into the discomfort, you're really not there at that level to speak your voice, speak your boundaries, your truth. So it's super important to get that time alone to reflect when having these more important, I should say, conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and the energy of it all, because you can see it and you can feel it. So you want to keep their energy out of it, because your truth is your truth and they don't define it. And hopefully you're still not allowing your parents or society or your friends or anyone else to define it, but you're going inside yourself because you know what you really want. You know your desires and your heart. And many times the people around you, they have an idea of who you are, but because you haven't explored and you haven't done the self-work to say, you know what, that's who I was then, but this is who I really am. This is who I always wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I'm allowing myself to step into that space and be that person and be okay with that. And when you do, it truly opens you up, and there's just a freedom and a love and a joy that is really indescribable. But it's important for each person to have that reflection. And so here's the great part of this, because if I'm doing it and then my partner does it, and then we come together and realize that we're on the same page, that is a match made in heaven, right? Not to say that everything is going to be perfect, because it's still not going to be perfect. There are going to be some things that are still going to need to be worked out, but your chances of having a happy, healthy marriage significantly increase when you have these type of conversations.
Yes, yes, I love that. And one thing that was coming through and just thinking about it for those maybe that are, not sure of how to access that space of what their truth is, even simply just like being in that meditative state, going in nature, thinking about the possible outcome and feeling in your body. Where is it constricting? Where is it expanding? And sometimes the fear may be there, but the fear doesn't always mean it's a stop sign. Sometimes the fear is just pushing you to see, okay, what's really there, what's underneath it. So yeah, it's definitely that relationship connection to you as you go into the relationship as well. One thing that's coming to mind too is like when I was reading your website, you talk about the PLP, or possible life partner.
Yes.
And I'm just so curious, maybe give your take on on this concept.
Well, I picked the term possible life partner because it's like, okay, there's sweetheart and there's bae and there's boo and there's all these other terminologies. But I wanted to give the person that you're going to be exploring this book with a more significant title. And I was like, well, you're thinking about your life, marriage possibly. So it's your possible life partner, not necessarily your soulmate, your life partner, but possible life partner, and looking at it as a possibility. Because if you already have in your mind that this is the person and how do I get this and that, well, you're already setting yourself back. And what you just said about, sitting with your body, and am I feeling fear? Am I feeling anxiety? What am I feeling within my body as I think about this person? And if it's coming from a space of loss, that's not a good thing, right? So you want to be within your power when you think about your possible life partner, and leaving it as simply that. They are a possibility. Your happiness does not rely on them. And when you step into your space of power and truth, you will recognize, yes, I can have a happy life with them, but if that doesn't work, I can also have a happy life without them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true happiness. That's true joy. Yeah. When you can love yourself in your own space. Now, this does not mean that you want to be alone forever. It doesn't mean that you don't want someone to make love to and have a companion and someone to spend night with. It doesn't mean any of those things. But what it does mean is when you are by yourself, you can still feel joy. You can still feel peace. You can still feel happiness. You can feel good about yourself, and you don't feel unloved. Because that's one of the scariest things whenever I hear somebody say, I don't have love in my life. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you don't have love in your life? Start with you. Start with you. There should never, ever, ever, even if everybody else that you know on this planet right now, there was something tragic that was to happen and all of them were to perish, you should still feel love because you love yourself.
Yeah.
So start there, and then you can begin to focus a little bit more on your possible life partner.
Yes. Yes, I love that term, possible life partner, because like you said, you're no longer putting it in a box. You're allowing yourself to see like this may be the one or it may not, and even within the tantric perspective, it's, you can have multiple soulmates, right? There's different people that come into your life to teach you lessons, to really help you grow, but to create and build a life with someone, that's different. And I think that really does bring us to like being more empowered versus in this attachment or this neediness or codependency in partnership that I feel, some people are in these dynamics. And I think our generation is really trying to change that, trying to change what it is to be in relationship, and that it can be that you feel still complete, even when you're alone, that this partner is a beautiful addition to help support you, help you both be wonderful mirrors to each other, to be your best self. But without them, life still goes on, and that you still can love and receive love and give love no matter what.
Absolutely. And I want to back up to something that you just said, Olivia, because it is extremely important. When you say a person has multiple soulmates, a lot of people think of a soulmate as just the person that it's meant for them to marry, the one. When the truth is, like you said, we have multiple soulmates. So your friends are your soulmates, or your parents, your siblings. So all of them are soulmates. And here's why I wanted to piggyback to this, because when you choose the person that is like in your greatest and highest good, what makes that so special as that soulmate, the group around you should be supportive of that.
Yes.
So if you have a mate and there's all this animosity and this strife, there's something that's going on that you need to figure out. Maybe if that person is your partner and there's a problem within the friendships, then maybe you've outgrown those friendships.
Mhm.
And it's time for you to evolve and move into another group. Or if your friendship group is already highly evolved and you bring this person in, then maybe it's your PLP. But it takes discernment and wisdom, and that's why it's really important for you to go inside yourself and know where you are so that you can build the best possible relationship. So, because all of your soulmates, you should be, jiving,
Yes. Yeah, everyone should be in this cohesive group.
yes,
Yes.
yes. Yes, there should be more joy and harmony and like a blending. Again, it's not going to be perfect. Yeah, there may be a little bickering here and there, but for the most part, you should be really, really good. And if you're not seeing that, go inside yourself and find out why that is.
Yes. No, thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's something that is a personal value. When I do meet my partner, I also want them to blend with my friend group, because I value my friendships. And for me, it's so important that there is, a healthy enmeshment for both parties. And just as much as I want to get to know their group of friends, and I want to know that, hey, like, we can balance both. And maybe some trips we go with your friends, some trips we go with mine. And that's for sure a non-negotiable for me. And yeah, I always say too, like, I'm the type of girl that, like, I want my friends to give me the truth, and I always tell them, like,
Yes.
if you feel something's off, you better tell me, no matter how badly it hurts, or if I,
Tell me.
stop talking to you, just at least that I know that, hey, they tried to warn me, because later down the line, I'm sure the truth is going to come out.
Right.
So it's important, I think, to also have those conversations with your friends to know, like, hey, I want your honest opinion. And of course, it's still my decision what I do, but yes, there's reflections everywhere, and it's important because, yeah, once the attachment, the hormones start kicking in, you get into this beautiful love bubble. And sometimes that love bubble isn't serving as much as it could. So
Absolutely. And I commend you for having that conversation with your friends and saying, hey, if you see me, if I'm acting nuts and I'm ignoring warning signs, I need you to step into that space and tell me. And even if I get upset with you, maybe for a little bit, it's okay. Can you love me through my process? I think that's awesome. And your friends that are holding that space for you, that is absolutely beautiful. So kudos to you and your friends as well. That's wonderful.
yes. And that's also something that, like, I really hope that everyone gets to experience, because luckily I have my friends that, we do a lot of healing together. We've been very vulnerable with each other. And I feel like it's really allowed us to grow and prepared us for when we are in that romantic partnership, we can, bring these skills to the table. And it's just so important and beautiful. So for anyone even watching that maybe isn't even looking for a romantic partner, but just friendship, know that there is, there are people that are willing to be vulnerable, that, want to really grow and help you grow. So keep searching for that if that's, if that's what's, your desire deep inside.
And I would even add to that,
Yeah.
make sure that you're being that.
Yes, that too, for sure.
Right? The person that you want to attract into your life, because if you say, oh, I want a partner, that's really happy and, they're really easy to talk to and they like to listen, but you don't like to listen to anyone. It always has to be your way or the highway. We got a little bit of work to do there.
Yeah.
So write down all the characteristics of what you want in a partner, and then go back and make sure that you are all of those things. Ask your friends.
Yeah.
Just your mutual platonic friends, ask them, am I that person? Am I a person that's easy to talk to? Am I laid back? Because this is how I see myself, but how do you see me? And look at it from that perspective and begin taking stock of who you are. Because I see many, many people trying to attract into their life what they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I spoke about this earlier. I want love in my life. You're expecting somebody else to bring into your life something that you don't have. Give it to yourself, and then you attract that. If you're a fun person, you're most likely going to attract a fun person because they mirror who you are. So look at yourself.
Yes, yes, 100%. That's something that I definitely teach and know myself, because in a lot of my journey on this search for love, I was still with that, Disney movie concept of, this person is going to be the love of my life and just everything's going to get better. But because I was, unhappy and really not willing to hold space for myself. So I just expected that once I meet this person, everything will be solved,
Yes.
until I started to realize, like, no, I was still trying to escape or fill a void,
Yes.
Through seeking this partnership or this romance. Until I really stepped into really being so in love with my life and with myself that no, it's possible. I'm a living example, and this is definitely something that I help others step into. So I love that you brought that up.
And that's beautiful, and that's where the magic begins to happen, because you're not looking to be breastfed,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yes.
because you're already healing yourself. Mm-hmm. And although couples can help each other heal, yes, they both have to be on the path already of looking inward and healing themselves, and not blaming issues on their parents. Yes, your parents may have been a part of it, but now that you're an adult, take responsibility and begin to shift your life and create the life that you desire. And then you and your partner can come together and you can help each other work out the kinks. And I think it's really beautiful, mm-hmm, when two people come to that space and say, wow, I see this in my partner and I see this in myself. So how can I begin to work on myself and simultaneously help my partner if they are in that space and they're willing to grow as well? And when you can do that, again, it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, yes. No, I love that. And yeah, for anyone who maybe is, on that journey of, healing and wants to bring their partner along, I always say start with you, and then it's an invitation. It's always an invitation, not a demand for the partner to change. Like you said, they have to want to change. They have to have self-growth and self-evolution as one of their core values. And I'm sure that's going to pop up one of the questions in the book of, how much do you value, self-growth and really becoming a better person. So yeah, I think that's beautiful how you said that. And yeah, and know that, like, in partnership, no matter how long you've been together, there's always space for evolution and growth. And that's something that your intimacy is same. It's limitless. As you grow, your relationship grows. I always say that you have a soul, your partner has a soul, and your relationship has a soul. Yes. And so it's beautiful when you both take ownership of your own things, but also come together as a unit to know, hey, this could be even bigger than both of us alone.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned each individual having a soul and then the relationship having a soul. Because when I work with couples, I tell them I am servicing the relationship. Mm-hmm. And then you just happen to be the two pieces that make up that relationship. So each one of you has to do your work, and then you have to come together. There is a section of the book where I wanted the couples to really allow themselves to become more intimate. And I added questions about, what do you plan to bring into the relationship? How do you plan to serve? How do you plan to show up for your partner? Because unfortunately, today, a lot of people are just like, well, when I get married, I need my spouse to do A, B, C, D, right? And they have this long laundry list of what they want their PLP to do. But what are you planning on doing? What are you doing to add value to your spouse once you get married? And if you haven't made a plan for that, again, go back and make a plan for how you're planning to show up. Because looking at yourself, you're the only one that you can control. And I love how you said that earlier. It's an invitation. They may or may change.
Yeah.
You have all the power to change yourself. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I love how you said that. Also, what came up too is you also don't have to be both fully healed. Like this concept that, oh, I can't get into the partnership unless I heal this and I do this. Like, no, the relationship serves, you know, as that mirror for the growth and continuous
Yes.
healing. But yes, like you said, it's a journey that you guys are serving the relationship itself. And
And you're always healing a part of yourself. And here's the thing, there are going to be some things about yourself that you thought were more healed, and then you get married and you're like, what?
yeah, it's coming back again. What?
This part. Okay, well, let's go back, and I'm going to have to do some more self work. So the work realistically is never done.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like taking a shower. Well, just because you took one yesterday, or you're not going to take one today or tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's something that has to consistently be done. And I think if people begin to look at that from more of an exciting perspective of the better I get, the happier we're going to be, the more connected we're going to be, our lives are just going to be enhanced in every way. If they can begin to look at it from that perspective instead of, it's work, marriage is
Yeah.
work, it's work. And it's like every relationship is work.
Yeah.
The relationship you have with your friends is work. The relationships, if you're going to have kids, that's newsflash, there's work to be done. So there's always going to be this work. But if the marriage is worth it, then go for it.
Yeah.
You know when you really want something because of the value and the time and the attention that you will put into it. Even if you're purchasing something physical, right? If you're purchasing a home or a car, there are certain people that will say, I would never spend that much for a house or for a car. Well, there are people that would because it's valuable to them. So your marriage is valuable to you. Invest that time and energy into your marriage, just like you invest time and energy into your friendship.
Yeah.
And for all the people out there, I have to throw this in there for anyone out there who may be thinking, yeah, but it's easier with my friends. Your friends are a minor reflection of you. Your spouse is the full deal. So look at that. Because they're a mirror of you, they're reflecting you. So we need to take a big picture look at everything that's going on within the relationship.
Amazing. Yes, I love that concept because it's true. And that's why, yeah, some people say, oh, it shouldn't be this much work. It should just be easy. Like, no, it's really inviting you to go deeper. And like you said, it's not even about the work. Like there's always healing, but what's worth it is the level of love you can give and receive just exponentially increases over time. And yeah, that's the one thing that I'm like, wow, I can't wait. I can't wait for this PLP to come in my life.
and, and if both parties are willing to do the work, it does get easier over time. It's not an overnight thing, but it does get easier over time. And how quickly that happens is really up to the individuals.
Yeah.
It can happen as quickly as you would like for it to.
Yes, exactly. Good thing you brought that up because what I've noticed is in the healing journey, the more healing you do, it's not that you don't experience, the emotions or the suffering. Like you still may experience that, but your